Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morn-afternoon-evening. My name is Bozo the Mike at Filmboy24, and today we're going to do yet another Super 8 camera breakdown and review. That's right, today is Super 8 camera day, breakdown day stuff. In case you were wondering, because I had some people email me and a couple people texted me and they were checking on me, and I really appreciate everybody reaching out. We just had Hurricane Ian come through, started over in the Fort Myers area, west coast of Florida, and made its way sort of diagonally right through us. So we fared fine. There were a lot of people that are a lot worse off than we are, so we consider ourselves lucky, and our hearts go out to them. We had substantial flooding in my front and backyard. We were without power for a little over 3 days. We were on the fourth day and the power came on. So we were fine. We managed well. It's my wife and I and our 2 children had a generator. Again, there were a lot of people that were way worse off than we were. So my heart goes out to you people if you were affected by Hurricane Ian. I was born and raised in Florida and lived in Indiana briefly for 5 or 6 years and back to Florida, and that was when I was really young. So I'm a native Floridian. I love Florida. If you can get past the heat and humidity and weird bugs and alligators and, well, hurricanes, then it's probably the greatest state in the nation, in my opinion. And it also feels good that it's feeling good. The weather is calming down a little bit, so we're in October, which is my favorite month of the year, because it's Halloween-ish times. I love horror movies. I love low-budget horror movies, just like this one. I'm not affiliated with anybody affiliated with the movie Killer, but it was very inspirational in my lifetime. Came out in the late 80s, 1989, and it's really what sort of got me interested in Super 8. I did reach out to the director, Tony Elwood. I reached out to him in the early 90s, and we had some snail mail correspondence, but he sent me a mug and a t-shirt, and I did a review about the movie. If you want to see it, I'll put the little link up there somewhere. You can check it out. It's a fun little, really low budget, under $10,000 Super 8 slasher horror film that was shot, like I said, in the 80s. He's got a couple of them left in stock on Blu-ray. If you're interested, I'll put a link to his website. You can watch a trailer if you're into that kind of thing, but it is Super 8, so it was fun. Anyway, moving on. Today, that's right, it's Super 8 camera day, and that means we're going to go over in detail this. What do we have for him, Vanna? This beautiful Minolta XL401 Super 8 camera. I got this for a really good deal, and if you follow my channel, you've heard me talk about it before. I've never shown any footage from it yet until today. You will see footage. So, but before I do that, I wanted to sort of go over it, and let's talk about it a little bit and see what it's about. I do have the Canon 514 XL. I have a couple other. You probably saw my video a couple weeks ago where I used the Bell & Howell. I think it's was it the 30 PXL or XL or something like that, but those are all kind of similar family cameras that take the 2 AA cells. This particular camera, let's delve right in. It's a Minolta XL401. Now 401 means it's a 4:1 zoom lens. The camera weighs, with a roll of film in it, about 30 ounces, which equates to about 850 grams if you use the gram system. It has a wonderful 4:1 zoom lens. It goes from 8.5 to 34 millimeter and sports a nice wide f1.2 iris. So you get plenty of light in there. It does come fully equipped with auto exposure and manual exposure. This is something that my Canon 514 XL doesn't have. You can't do manual exposure with that camera. You can with this one, and to me, that is a selling point. If you do any film work whatsoever halfway serious, then you know you can't rely on auto exposure all the time. So we kind of look for that manual exposure so we can dial it in nice and tight, really pull out the detail in the shadows. It does have auto or manual zoom. Now, if you use your zoom on a Super 8 camera, use it sparingly, please. Let me show you what this one does. So we'll go over this little dial here, then I'll show you the zoom because it has to be turned on. The dial on the side, the main control dial, has a backlight compensation. So you switch it up. Now when you film, you're filming with backlight compensation. So that opens up your iris about a stop. It's used for, was mainly used for when your subject was standing in front of the sun or in bright light. It opens it up a little bit so your background will be brighter, but your subject should come into better view or better exposed. Down from there is your on. Now your camera is operable. You go to off, and there's battery check. Now it's on a spring, so when you spring that down to battery check, you got to look through the viewfinder, and in the bottom right of the viewfinder, a little green light will come on if you got good batteries. Now to operate the camera, you'll want it on. For your zoom to work in manual mode, you have to be pulling the shutter trigger here. You can hear the camera running. And now you can zoom in and out. You see the little ring moving there? Exciting. So you can also manual zoom here. I guess they're both manual zoom. There really isn't an auto zoom. You have to either do it this way or this way manually. Motorized zoom, there you go. Now with the control dial in backlight, everything still works exactly the same as it would if it was just in the on position. It just, like I said earlier, opens your iris up about one stop. Now moving on to the next dial, you have run. This camera runs at 18 frames per second. That's the only normal filming speed it has. It does do 1 frame per second here. So every time you pull the trigger, you get 1 frame. That's good for animation, time-lapse if you want to sit with the camera. Or whatever you want. If you want to take pictures with your camera, then you use that. It has a self-timer. Switch it all the way to the bottom. And what that does is when this is on a tripod or a desk or a table or a chair or a tree, I switched it. What it does is it waits 10 seconds and then it runs anywhere from, you have to adjust this wheel from top to bottom. It'll wait 10 seconds and it will then run for either 10 all the way down to 20 seconds and everything in between. Now there really isn't good marks as to sort of the intervalometer and how long things take. You just kind of got it. There's little hash marks. I guess you could make your own little marks. You know, you got to time them yourself, which I've done a little bit. In other words, you know the top is 10. It'll run for 10 seconds and the bottom is 20 seconds roughly, but you don't know where 17 seconds is. It's in there somewhere, but you know, your best guesstimate is good enough. For me anyway, it is. Intervalometer. This is a great feature of these little cameras, and you usually don't get an intervalometer on these lower end cameras, although this really isn't that lower end. I guess I compare it to, you know, like the Canon 1014 XLS or something being higher end. This is more of a mid-range camera. So what you do is you move your switch from self-timer or wherever it's on, and you go all the way to the top, and it will start automatically. As soon as you hit intervalometer, it starts. There's no, that's it, it's running. As you can see from here, it's going. This dial on the far right is set all the way to the top there. When it's all the way to the top, about every half a second, you'll get a single frame. As you rotate this dial around, you can see it slows down. According to the manual, and I have timed it all the way around to its stopping point here, gives you right around 1 frame every 60 seconds. Now, I've done some time-lapse before, and my sweet spot is really about 1 frame every 5 seconds. I guess it depends on exactly what you're doing. I was doing clouds, and I guess if you're doing flowers or things like that, you really want to let that go a little bit longer. Great feature of these little cameras. It works fantastic. And one of these days, maybe I'll do a time-lapse with this particular camera so we can judge for ourselves. Now, like I said earlier, it does have auto and manual exposure. If you are in auto exposure and you look through the viewfinder, there's a little triangle sort of pop-up that shows up in the bottom left corner of your viewfinder that lets you know if you're going to underexpose. So if you cover the lens or put a lot of darkness at the front of the lens, that little triangle will pop up and say, hey, 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 settle down, get some light in me. Point it towards the light, that little thing disappears. Nice little warning signal. It does have split image focusing, which you know I like. I don't like just a glass that you got to do your best to try to figure out what's in focus. This has the split image, which is the circle with the line through the middle. And then when both top and bottom are focused and there's no, line in the middle, you're focused. And all you do is you zoom all the way in to your subject, focus, and then you're focused no matter where your zoom is. Speaking of eyepiece, was I speaking of eyepiece? This little lens cup here, this little rubber cup, is not the original for this. It's one that I had laying around. It kind of fit, and I'm pulling the trigger here. It kind of fit, so I left it on there for now, just for show. You can open and close the viewfinder. If you're going to do the intervalometer or self-timer, you want to get focus, and then you want to close your viewfinder. Right here on top, it's open and close, kind of like the Bolex reflexes have on their sides, where you can, a lot of cameras have this, where it closes the iris. There's a little iris in there, and it shuts light off from being able to get in and fogging your film. So you want to leave that off if you're using intervalometer or self-timer or single frame. Anytime you're not, you don't have your big noggin like me looking through the viewfinder, turn that off, push forward. It also has the filter switch here, has your 85 filter. You go from the sun to the light bulb. Whenever it's on light bulb, there's no filter. When it's on sun, you have the 85 filter. Your eyepiece also has the diopter adjustment, and it's very simple. You just twist it back and forth. Whoop, whoop. So when you have bad eyesight like me, so like if I take off, you don't really want to use your prescription glasses when you're filming. So with your glasses off, you want your eyepiece to kind of be your prescription so that you focus properly. So you basically zoom into something that's infinity, and then you set the diopter until, and you want your focus at infinity and your object to be whatever, 100 feet away. Then you want to focus the image with your diopter. And when that's in focus, well, pretty much you could focus anything. That's kind of how it works. This camera has a couple of little sockets on the side here, little inputs. It has a flash sync socket here on the right-hand side. That's for plugging in a flash. It's really useful for when you're doing like animation work or stop motion. You can trigger the flash every time it triggers a frame, which is kind of cool. It also has a remote socket right here, and I'm going to show you really quick. It's neat. By the way, this handle, it's just there's no latch or lock. It's just a very, very stiff, kind of a bear to pull down, which is good because it doesn't want to close on you. Anyway, the remote, I have a couple of different remotes here. They're both made by Canon. This is a newer, modern one that you can order online now. This is a really old one from the 70s that used to come with Canon cameras that would accept the remote socket, or had the remote socket. So I tried both, and let me show you. All you do is you take your remote, make sure your camera's on, plug in your remote. This is the old one. Goofiness over. This is the new one. Like I say, these you can order wherever, Amazon, eBay. I'll put a link to this one that I bought. I think I got this one on Amazon a little while back. But you plug it in, doesn't take batteries. And it also has this doesn't lock. There's no shutter lock on this. So your remote does have a shutter lock. You push in, push up. Now what? Boom, you're running continuously. No need for a shutter lock on your camera. You kidding me? By the way, these have shutter locks on them too. It's the same principle. You push in, pull down, and it locks. Come on now. This camera also has, you remember these? Remember the old camcorder days? You couldn't be sly with an old camcorder if you wanted to film somebody and they didn't know it, because there was a little red light that would blink on the front of it. Well, this one's not so sly either. Can you see the little red light there? I'm not filming you, I promise. Guess all you could say now is there's no film in the camera. Really? It has the standard Every camera that I've ever seen, well, okay, most every camera that I've ever seen has the little footage counter here. This one goes from completely full, quarter, half, 3/4, then empty. So you figure it out. I don't know, half is 25 feet used. Now I will say this, if you have a cart in here and you open this and you take the cartridge out and then put it back in, it's going to reset your counter. There is also a little light in the bottom left of the viewfinder that'll flash when you've hit 50 feet of film. If you take the cartridge out and put it back in, that's no longer in play. Doesn't work. It's based on the entire 50-foot roll of film, the little light inside the viewfinder. The same as your counter. So they work sort of in unison. It has the standard workout, has the standard 1/4-20 tripod socket right on the bottom. And it also has this nice little collapsible lens hood. Whoop. Pretty handy, actually. Now, the camera is powered, I may have said it earlier, but by 2 AA batteries. That powers the camera's motor, the zoom motor, and all of the metering. So 2 batteries and you're done. I will say, according to the manual, and I haven't tested this, 1 cart. This will run 1 full cartridge approximately if you're doing intervalometer work, because the camera stays on and it's working and the timer's going internally for hours and hours and hours. So they highly recommend that you change the batteries if you're doing intervalometer in between cartridges. Also probably self-timer, it eats up a little more battery. But anytime you have the batteries in, you want to make sure you leave your camera off. If you're not going to use the camera for more than a week or so, take those batteries out or you're going to regret it, I promise. Okay guys, this is just a very quick little insert. Something I forgot to mention while I was actually recording this video, so I'm throwing it in quick. Right here on the side of the camera, directly in front of the auto and manual exposure, is a normal and macro switch. In normal, it's just your normal lens, everything as advertised. When you switch it down to macro, a little tiny magnifying lens gets thrown right in front of the film plane, and then you focus with your zoom ring. It's really cool. You can get very, 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 very close to your subject and focus with your zoom ring. There, that's it. And the last thing I want to mention is the camera, if you can open it, it's designed for, like most cameras of this time, film up to 250 ASA. You could get away with shooting 500T in this camera only because 500T has so much latitude. I have shot 500T with my 514 XL, and with a little bit of tweaking in post, it comes out beautiful, just like I shot it in my 1014 XLS. So you could get away shooting 500T in here. You just have to do a little bit of work to it. It'll overexpose a little bit. No big deal with Vision 3 stock, I can promise you that. I think that covers the camera itself. One thing I want to mention, I really, really, really like this camera. Can you tell? Woo! I really like this camera. One of the positives, one of the things I really like about it, other than, I said really a lot, like really a lot, other than the manual exposure and the intervalometer, which is really, really cool. If you wanted to crop to 16:9, let's say you were shooting a project and you did want to crop to 16:9, I'm going to put a couple of images up, just some films that I shot. They're both 50D. Neither have been color corrected, so they're kind of log looking. But I'll show you where I cropped in with my editing software, where I crop in just to the edge of everything and just to the inside of the sprocket hole, this camera's footage and my 514 XL camera footage. Here they are. This is the 514 XL, and you can see right where I cropped in, right to the edges, and you got, rounding it, 1810 by 1320, with 1810 being your width and 1320 being your height. Now let me show you the image from the XL401, and as you can see, you have 1827 for your width and 1299 for your height. So, if you're looking for a little bit more of a widescreen look, that one's going to give it to you, you know, 15 to 20 pixels both ways. So a little bit easier to crop 16 by 9. So I hope you enjoyed that little breakdown. Now the footage. What I did is I took a roll. It was an older roll. It was Vision 3. It was this roll here. And I found out after processing it that this particular roll was manufactured in 2012. So I took a 10-year-old roll of Vision 3 50D. You know 50D is my favorite. Loaded it up, took it outside. My youngest daughter and my wife were sitting in the driveway with sidewalk chalk because my little one just loves to draw on the driveway. Loaded it up. And I shot it. And I processed it myself in my Lomo UPB-1A processing tank. I processed it myself with my Home Brewed ECN-2 mix. If you want to know how to process ECN-2, it's really not hard. I have a whole video. It's about an hour long, but it has chapter marks exactly of my process. I'll put a link. I don't know. I keep pointing. I can't really see anything except my ceiling. I'll put a link somewhere up in that corner where you can check out that ECN-2 video. I want to show you the results of this. I did have to do some color correcting, a little bit of white balance. Here's what I got. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed this little breakdown of my Minolta XL401. I know I sure did. I love this little camera. In fact, it's in my top 3 now of favorite Super 8 cameras that I currently own. And I've owned hundreds over the years. This is in my top 3 because it's easy to handle, easy to run and gun, and it's feature-packed. Stay tuned because I'm going to pit this one, and I'm going to crop all of the images the same, but I'm going to pit this one against my Canon 514 XL, against my Bell & Howell. Again, why am I, the model is escaping me, the 30, I think, PXL. I'm going to put those three cameras to the test. One roll of film, probably 50D. I'm not going to tell you which one shot which, and we're going to see who can get it right. I'm going to crop them all the same. If you enjoyed this video, which you did, I promise, hit the like button for me. It's free, it's very easy, and it'll remind you that you've already seen this video, so you won't waste your time watching it again, because you'll open it and say, oh yeah, I already liked it. If you feel like I've earned it, how about do me another favor? See that right there? Right there, I don't know what, yeah, right there. That's just a picture. You have to go below, but hit the subscribe button. If you want to become part of this fun little family, we have a good time here. And until the very, very, very next time that I see all your beautiful faces, you know who you are, all of you. That's the one. Whoa, 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 get back. I'll see all of you on the very next goofy go around.